These Brooklyn residents made a goldfish pond on their sidewalk. A couple of longtime Brooklyn residents were lounging in the heat last week staring at a sidewalk tree pit often flooded by a leaky fire hydrant when they came up with the idea for a makeshift aquarium. We started joking about, what if we added fish? Since the water is always there sitting in the puddle, why not turn this into something that's more interesting? Well, I'll tell you what you don't do. Add fish to it. I understand the charm, and these residents obviously care about the fish, but there's no way you can tell me that they're watching 24/7 on guard to make sure nothing happens to these fish. All it takes is some kid with a rock or a brick or ideas about just jumping in the pond, and those fish are gone. Also, the article states that these are feeding fish. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm no fish expert, but I've always considered goldfish to be a typical household pet. I mean, maybe you could feed these fish to some other species of fish, but that's just how I've always seen them. But as videos and news stories about the fish pit have circulated online, the project has drawn concern from city officials and backlash from animal rights advocates. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, two neighborhood residents, Emily Campbell and Max David, carried out a rescue mission. Using nets and plastic bags, they pulled about 30 fish from the 2-inch deep waters. 30 fish were rescued. How many fish were in this pond? Surely that was all of them, right? Or did some not get rescued as well? I think the rule of thumb is 1 centimeter of fish per liter of water, and that pond doesn't look big enough to sit 30 goldfish comfortably. They say they were rescuing the fish from inhumane conditions, but the operation has sparked a boiling debate about gentrification in the historically black neighborhood, which has seen an influx of young white residents in recent years. So now these fish are starting to cause racial division in the community. Look, some people like the fish, some people don't like the fish. That's all there is to it. There's no reason to bring race into this. I don't want to see murals of Nemo next to murals of George Floyd. I'm very aware of the optics of a white yuppie coming here and telling this man who's lived in the neighborhood his whole life that he doesn't know what he's doing, said Campbell, a self-described fish enthusiast who previously worked in aquaponics. I do sympathize with that. I just don't want to see 40 fish suffocate in a puddle from their own waste. Even if these fish are comfortable and living their best lives, you can't just turn a public sidewalk into an aquarium. That's not how it works. I'm sorry, but you can't. It just opens the door to all sorts of residential modifications to public property. Soon you could see children's playgrounds being converted into makeshift housing units, all because the local council decided that they will let this aquarium exist. He said the group planned to keep the fish in place for about 2 more weeks, then donate them to neighborhood children. On Friday afternoon, the visitors included local grocery workers, an actor, and a wide-eyed toddler whose nanny had learned about the tank in the news. It's a really beautiful guerrilla intervention, said Josh Draper, an architect who keeps his own goldfish in his Bed-Stuy apartment. It's creating a city that's alive. Another passerby suggested the fish would soon become rat food. And that's another thing I didn't consider. Apart from kids and teenagers with rocks and bricks, what's stopping the local rat population from just coming along and indulging in some seafood? Don't rats eat anything and everything? The pond isn't even that deep, it's 2 inches thick. It's not enough to drown the rats. They could just run in, grab a fish and take off. Department of Environmental Protection said there were real safety concerns about leaking hydrants. They had sent crews to fix the hydrant multiple times, but it had been turned back on by residents. So at first the residents made the pond all because of the fire hydrant that was leaking and there was always water in that specific spot. Sooner or later the council realized that that was the reason, so they decided to fix the hydrant to stop the leaking, and then the residents keep the fire hydrants leaking. It doesn't make any sense. What happens when there's a heavy rain and the fish gets swept away by the overflowing water? Are the residents gonna rush to the pond with pots, bowls and cups in an attempt to save the fish before they are swept away? I don't understand and it doesn't make sense, but apparently the fish pond is still going today, so good on them, I guess. Anyway, that's everything I got for that story. Thanks so much for sticking around. Take care.